In the late 1700s, deep in southern Africa, the Zulu people were, well, pretty insignificant. They were a tiny clan, and while their name, People of Heaven, sounds epic, their actual territory was about the size of a medium-sized IKEA. War back then was more like a highly dramatic sports match. Armies would stand really far apart, throw a long, flimsy spear called an assegai, and yell insults at each other. Your mother is a warthog. Ha, you missed me. Also, my mother is a lovely woman. Oh yeah? Well, your cows have weird spots. If someone actually got hurt, it was a huge deal. Everyone would feel bad and just go home. It was low stakes, low impact, and frankly, a bit boring. But then, a guy named Shaka was born, and he was about to make boring a thing of the past. Shaka had a rough childhood. He was an outcast, which gave him plenty of time to sit around and think up new and terrifying ways to win a fight. His first big no-no? The throwing spear. He looked at it and thought, why are we throwing our only weapons away? We look like idiots. So he invented something new. He called it the Iklwa, a short, broad-bladed stabbing spear. It was named after the sound it makes when you pull it out of an enemy's ribcage. Dark? Yes. Effective? Very. Next up on Shaka's list of improvements, feet. He realized that sandals were for losers. They slowed you down. So he forced his entire army to go barefoot. To make sure their feet were tough enough, he made them dance on a floor of thorns. You can imagine the conversation. Chief, these thorns are quite pointy. Do you know what else is pointy, Thabo? My new spear. Keep dancing. This brutal training meant the Zulu army, the Amabutho, could march up to 50 miles a day over rocks, thorns, and scorching earth. For comparison, most European armies of the time could barely manage 12 miles without complaining about their socks getting bunched up. Now, Shaka needed a way to use these high-speed, barefoot stabbing machines effectively. Enter the Buffalo Horns Formation, or Impando Zangamo. It was a 4-part tactical masterpiece, and it was devastating. First, you have the chest. This was the main body of the army, the strongest warriors. They would run straight at the enemy, not screaming, just staring with terrifying intensity. They'd lock their shields together, forming a wall of cowhide and pure muscle. While the enemy was panicking about this silent wall of muscle coming at them, the horns would make their move. These were the youngest, fastest warriors, and they would sprint around the enemy's sides. Because they were barefoot and had the cardio of an Olympic marathoner, they could surround an entire army before the enemy even knew what was happening. You'd be thinking, wait, where are those guys going? And by the time you finished the sentence, you were trapped. And then there were the loins. These were the grizzled veterans, the elite reserve. They sat behind the main force with their backs to the fight. This was a genius move. It stopped them from getting battle fever and charging in too early. They were Shaka's delete button, waiting to be deployed wherever the line was weakest or to cut down anyone who tried to escape the trap. A complete, inescapable system of destruction. Shaka also practiced a concept we now call total war. He didn't just want to defeat your army. He wanted to break your entire will to fight. He used a scorched earth policy. If you were foolish enough to invade Zulu territory, you wouldn't find a single blade of grass or a drop of water. Everything would be burned. Imagine an invading army marching for days, getting hotter and thirstier. Right, men, it's 2 o'clock. Time for tea and biscuits. Blimey, there are no biscuits. There is only fire. Fast forward to 1879. The mighty British Empire, the guys who owned half the world, showed up in southern Africa. They arrived with their fancy red coats, their perfect mustaches, and their state-of-the-art Martini Henry rifles. They looked at the Zulu warriors and thought they were just guys with sticks. One commander was famously quoted saying, "We don't need to dig trenches, Jenkins. we have superiority. On January 22nd, at a place called Ezenluana, that arrogance met its match. 20,000 Zulu warriors, using Shaka's buffalo horns formation, descended on the British camp. And to make things even more epic, a literal solar eclipse happened during the battle. The Zulu called it the Day of the Dead Moon. They charged through a wall of British lead, ignoring casualties that would have broken any other army. They got in close and used their Ikluas to prove that a mustache is not, in fact, a bulletproof vest. The Battle of Eisenluana remains the British Army's greatest single defeat against a non-industrialized force. So how did the Zulu Army maintain this incredible speed and logistical efficiency? One of their secrets was the Udibi. These were young boys, essentially apprentices to the warriors. They weren't fighting yet, but they followed the army, carrying all the heavy stuff, the food, the sleeping mats, the spare weapons. This wasn't just child labor. It was a military academy on the move. By the time these kids were 18 and ready to join the ranks, they were already hardened veterans who knew exactly how the army's logistics worked. And their diet was another cheat code. Unlike European armies that relied on heavy bread and salted pork, which often went bad and caused disease, the Zulu lived on amasi, a kind of fermented yogurt, and fresh beef. It was a high-protein, lean and mean diet that kept them fast and healthy. It also meant they didn't suffer from the stomach problems that often killed more European soldiers than actual bullets did. Shaka Zulu was eventually assassinated by his own half-brothers, a classic history trope, but his legacy was already sealed. He had transformed a tiny, insignificant clan into a legendary empire feared across the continent. He proved that with iron discipline, brilliant tactics, and enough calluses on your feet, you could take on the biggest empire in the world and win. So the next time you complain about your shoes being slightly too tight or having to walk to the corner store, just remember, somewhere out there, the ghost of a Zulu warrior is laughing at you while he sprints 50 miles over thorns. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories from history.